Okay, my boys and girls, my lovers, my nieces and nephews, we're going to talk about 10 things that affect the price of electric guitars. So, when you're shopping online, you go into the music store, this will affect the price of electric guitars. This does not apply to acoustic or classical guitars. They're going to have their own sets of, they might have things that are similar that are going to affect the price, but that's definitely a separate issue. So, this is really just talking about electric guitars. So, number one, obviously, the brand name. The first ones that come to mind, Fender and Gibson. The brand name is going to help you hold value of your guitar when you try to resell it also. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the instrument is a higher quality. It just means that Fender has a reputation and they're banking on that reputation and the thousands of instruments that they've already created and manufactured. And so, it is worth it in some ways, especially if you want to resell your guitar. It'll hold its value and you can usually get similar amount to what you paid for it, if not even more, an appreciation over time. Another thing to keep in mind is that you can even have a clone of a guitar you can have a Fender Strat, which is a very easy guitar for other companies to copy, and you can have it have identical components and have the same level of craftsmanship, but the name Fender on it is going to make it so that you're going to pay more for it, and that's just what it is. Um, and so you can take that for what it will. That's not a quality thing. Like that being said, if in a hypothetical situation we have two identical guitars, the one with the brand name will get you more money. Number two, the quality of the components, the types of tuners, the bridge, the neck, the electronics, the pickups, the types of woods. All of these parts have an effect on the overall price. It just matters what it costs for the, manufacturers to get those components for, and then obviously they'll mark it up. But the higher quality components generally are more expensive. So if you find two similar guitars, one's the import version, one's like the one made in the US. A lot of the times, the components and the hardware is something that'll be compromised in terms of they'll get a lower quality version of those things in order to still maintain the look of maybe even the sound of the guitar, but for a more affordable mass production price. So the quality of the materials will affect the overall cost of the guitar. The quality of the build. So, in an extreme case, if you go to a luthier and have them custom build a guitar for you from scratch, you can pay up to $30,000, right? Versus you go to the Guitar Center and you get a Squire and it's $100. There's an equation of the expertise of the guitar builder and the amount of time that they spend building that guitar that's gonna equal out into a price, whatever that price may be. If you're going to the Fender custom shop, and you're getting your guitar built from a master builder, you're going to spend $4,000 on a Stratocaster that you might otherwise spend $1,500 on if it was an American made, or $800 if it's a Mexican made Stratocaster. So the who makes it and the quality and the time that is spent on the guitar is going to have a dramatic effect on the price of it. Number four is the rarity, availability. So yeah, this is kind of speaks for itself, right? If there's not many of these guitars, then they can go for a high price, and even guitars which were considered lesser at the time of their release can go for tons of money later if they're just not that available, or for some reason they become popular, and they're just not. You can't buy them. For example, there's a Squire Hello Kitty guitar. I used to see that guitar in the shop for years. It's like $200. It's not a big deal. It's kind of a joke guitar. But now all of a sudden, you look online, and that I was seeing that Squire guitar for like $1,000, and so I'm like, it's the same guitar, but I just think it's just not as available, and for some reason, people have hyped it up, or it's maybe someone popular is using it, but so that the rarity of it now is like you can't just go out and get them like you used to. And so that's and also rarity, like guitars. The next one goes hand in hand. Number five is, it does it have a vintage classification, right? So if it's like around, a seller can say anywhere from 25 plus years, but really like 30 years and older of a guitar, you can consider it vintage, and that can definitely get you more. of a price, especially if it's also vintage and rare. It's not readily available. Guitars that aren't being made currently are going to fetch more money than they would if that guitar was still in production, if that makes sense. So just having a guitar that is not in production will make it more valuable. And so, vintage classification for the most part is going to be just that. And then you're going to have people who are into the era of a certain instrument, right? Some people like 70s Stratocasters, or some people like 50s Stratocasters. And it really can get fetch more of a price if these things are not available and they're from the past, essentially. So another thing that can affect it is obviously the country of origin. The country that it's made in will can definitely affect the price of the guitar. So anything made in USA, as a lot of us have experienced when we try to buy guitars made in America, they're going to be more, right? So guitars that are made in the USA. Guitars, certain Fenders that are made in Japan are going to be sought after. Certain Epiphone Sheratons made in Korea are going to be sought after. So the country which the guitar is made, in general, the USA is going to have a markup being made in the States. But depending on the model, if that particular model is sought after, it could even be an Indonesian made guitar if it's the particular model that people like. No, that run of guitars was very good and it's known to be very good out of a certain location, out of a certain factory, then that reputation can have an effect on the price. So the country of origin, the country that it's made in, will affect the price of the guitar. So 7, the condition of the instrument. Obviously, if it's brand new, that doesn't really make a difference. But if it's used, right, you want to keep it in as good a condition as possible. And then another thing about condition is you want to make sure that all the original parts are on the guitar if you want it to hold as much value as possible. So, a vintage instrument with original parts is going to get you more than a vintage instrument with modifications. So if you're able to keep the original in mint, in as good a condition as you can, that's obviously going to affect the price of the guitar as far as reselling it and getting it used, or if you were to buy it from someone else. The country of the purchase. So we talked about the country of it, where it's made, but also the country that you purchase it in, just based on taxes, based on tariffs, based on import laws, can affect the price of guitars. For example, Squire guitars in Australia, which go for 400, 500 here, apparently go for 900 in Australia, just because of the laws they have out there and the cost of shipping and the, trade agreements they have. So the country that you buy your guitar in can have an effect, whereas you could possibly get the same guitar in another country cheaper. So if you were perchance traveling or something like this, obviously it's not going to be cheaper to fly or travel to a place. You probably buying the guitar there in your travel, but if you happened to be in a place, that could affect the price of the guitar. But I mean, that could even be different parts of town, right? Could the part of town you buy your guitar in could affect the price if you buy it at a shop that tends to mark it up a little bit more or less. So the circumstances of the purchase also will affect the price. Are you buying it off someone used and you're able to haggle the price? Did you find it on sale? Did you find it on Craigslist? So your patience and your willingness to wait for the right deal can have an effect on the price. Even though you see the same guitar, if you were wanting to knock off some money off it or get the same guitar for a little bit less, just your ability to wait for the price or wait for a sale or wait for someone to be selling it used, just being very specific about it can affect the price. So this is something where if you were wanting to get the same instrument for a lesser of a price, these things, the circumstance under which you buy it is going to obviously affect it. So, just making sure you really shop around and, possibly even haggle for the instrument, for the price to come down. And then number 10 is a combination of all of these things. So, for example, if you got a Fender that was in mint condition, had all the quality, all the original parts on it, that had a good reputation for being a good model anyway, and there wasn't many of them left, and it was built in America, You know, so there you go. So it's kind of a combination of all these things. So when you see guitars that are ranged in, $100 price, you're kind of looking at, okay, it's probably not going to have a brand name that the quality of the materials will probably be compromised. Doesn't mean they won't be decent, but they just won't be top quality. They're on a mission to find as cheap pieces as they can that work. So it'll work. It just means they're gonna try to find the most affordable parts they can. In $100 guitar, there's not going to be a ton of time spent finishing it, so there might be minor flaws in them. So that's when you're in the $100 range. We're in an era now where you can still get an instrument that'll play nice, but you're going to get these. These are where the compromises are going to be. The tuners might not be as good, and then you get up to a $250 level of guitar, and so you got a picture there. Is that enough to get you into a brand name? Is that enough to get you a Squire? It used to be. I think now Squires are more in the $400 range, especially where prices are at now. So you're kind of looking at that. So if you're wanting to get into Squire, you're probably looking at $400 used. Maybe as low as 250. So that's the thing to take into account. If you're modifying your guitar, it won't hold its value, but you were able to take an affordable guitar and make it play like something more expensive, right? So the price of the guitar isn't a one-to-one equation of, oh, you spend more, you're going to get something better. You could be spending a lot just to get a collector's item, right? My personal opinion, no guitar that you play daily needs to be more than a couple $1,000s, especially electric guitar. So if you're getting like $100,000 like Jimi Hendrix collectible or something, then you're getting that for a different reason, and that's why that price is going to be what it is. And so for people who are shopping just for reasonable in the reasonable price range, and you're just kind of wondering, well, what's the difference between $100 guitar, $200 guitar, $500 guitar? I mean, I feel like the basic price range is from zero to $300 is a range, and then $300 to $500 is a range. 500 to about $800 is a range, and then 800 to about $1,200 is a range of guitars, where within that range of price, you can find something relatively similar, relatively comparable. You can find a deal. You can kind of work the system. So get in the comment section. What do you think has an effect on the price of the guitars? um, and what did you think of the list? Is there anything else that you can think of that would affect the price of the guitars? I'd love to hear in the comment section. And also, what guitars do you think are a really, really great value that are like a little bit of a better value than the price that you pay for them? That's something I'm really interested in. So thank you, my nieces and nephews and my lovers. We'll talk soon. Peace.